I've been creating art in Procreate for about a decade now, and during that time, I have tried literally hundreds of brushes. And honestly, some were a really big waste of my time and my money. But over time, I have found a handful of Procreate brush sets that I absolutely swear by. They make creating and painting and drawing in Procreate feel like magic. Like every time I open this app, I am just having fun. It feels easy and effortless and totally addicting. And y'all know me, I am no gatekeeper, which means I am very happy to share these brushes with you. Also, I kind of felt like I just had a responsibility to make this video because every single time I post art, the number one question is, what brushes are you using? What brushes are you using? Please tell me what brushes you use to make that. The answer is these ones. These are the brushes that I use. I think I'm going to turn this into a series because these are just the painting brushes. There's watercolor, there's drawing, there's sketching, there's marker brushes, pencil brushes, color pencils. So if you like this type of video and you want to get more Procreate brush recommendations, be sure to let me know down in the comments. All right, let's get into it. The first brush I am super excited to talk to you about is the large round brush, and you can find this in Lisa Gland's Messy Paint Box set under her wet brushes. And I love this brush because it has like a slight color variation. Every time you pick up your brush and paint another stroke, you get a little bit different of a color. And I feel like that's really important for painting digitally. And something I want to note is the way that I'm holding my Apple Pencil. It's like not perpendicular, but more to the side. And I'm gripping it not at the front tightly, but towards the back. And this, with this brush, gives you this like really beautiful, painty, watercolory light texture. And I'm just kind of changing up my color every so often because I want a lot of variation. And I'm just doing that over the entire canvas in this really light color because I like to start light and then kind of add darkness as I go. And this is just kind of my underpainting. Another fun thing that I like to do when I'm using these brushes is use the smudge, but I don't use the tool, I use my finger. And I just smudge down what I'm painting, and I feel like this keeps me in the flow of painting. So like I'll paint a little bit, and then I'll smudge it out. And if you don't have the setting turned on, you can just go to your actions menu, which is the wrench, your preferences, and then down to your gesture controls, and then smudge and toggle that on. And that will make it so you can smudge with your finger. And now I'm just picking a darker blue for the center of my painting because I'm going to paint daisies and those are white, so I need a darker color background. And I have the patches brushes, and I'm just kind of dotting that around at a really large size and then doing that same thing where I'm smudging it out with my finger. So this is going to give me that dark background I need to paint those white daisies. The next thing that I want to do is paint the stamens or the center of my daisies, and I'm doing this with a very light butter yellow. And the brush that I'm using is called Very Wet Brush, and this is also from the Lisa Gland's Messy Paint Box set. And I'm starting out with this butter yellow light color, and if you notice, my brush opacity is just slightly down, and that's just preference. I like to work like lighter and looser to more opaque and darker. And I think that's because my medium I started out with was watercolor, so all of my painting workflows kind of emulate that style. And now I'm going and grabbing a slightly darker, a little bit more orange color because I want to paint the shadows on these stamens to make them look dimensional. And I'm grabbing a new brush, and this one is called Dry Goopy. And I love these dry brushes in this set. They have so much good texture in them, and they just kind of make me feel like I'm painting with acrylic paint, or if you've ever painted with really thick gouache, or if you like jelly gouache, you'll definitely love all the dry brushes in this set because they really emulate that thicker painting feeling. And I'm going to do one last pass on these stamens with a darker, more red orange. We're really building up dimension here. And I'm switching my brush to the messy and smudgy brush. And I love this brush so much. I've used it in my past videos and I just think it has like the most interesting edge texture. You can't really see it that well in how I'm using it here, but if you check out my video where I painted a cute little storybook pig, you can see it in action really well there. Okay, we are moving on to the fun part, which is the flowers and the petals themselves. And to do that, I'm going to switch up the brush set and I'm going to go from Lisa Glanz to Lisa Bardot, which is a different brush maker. And I am choosing the cotton canvas angled brush. And this brush really reminds me of my filbert brushes and how I like to paint flowers with that. And what I love about the angled set is if you have an Apple Pencil Pro that supports the barrel roll feature, you can twist your pencil around and it will paint directionally, which is like game changing for digital art. You weren't previously able to do this before the Apple Pencil Pro, and now that you can, it literally makes painting feel just like painting traditionally. It's insane. But this brush is my favorite. I love the texture of it. It has like a cottony, canvasy, painterly feel, and it's angled, so it's really good for making flower petals. And I'm just kind of like applying a thick pressure or heavy pressure towards the outside of my petal and then easing off on that pressure as I go in towards the stamen. And that gives me this like tapered brush shape, and it's just so easy to make petals with. Like I said, very much like my filbert brush in real life, because you just move the angle of your brush and you get a totally different stroke. Now, I ran into a little bit of a problem painting this daisy where the white petals, you couldn't see them because the blue didn't stretch behind it, but I just went back to my background layer and smudged that darker blue up behind those white petals so you can see them. So flowers are one of my all-time favorite things to paint with this playful painter set, and the angled brush makes it just so easy peasy. Like painting digital bouquets and florals has become a pastime for me because it's so relaxing and freeing. Like I don't need to sketch at all. Like you can see my sketch here is just these ovals, and that is literally the amount of sketching that I did. It's more about just playing around and painting. But I would love to do a series of tutorials where I taught you how to paint flowers and different kinds of flowers using the angled set from the Playful Painters. Because I'm not kidding you, like this is a very mind off, relaxing thing. Like I've never really considered myself a painter by nature. I feel like I'm more of an illustrator, graphic designer, artist. And painting just kind of eluded me. I've always needed to sketch and figure out where things are going so then I can execute them. But ever since I got these brushes, I have been very much into painting freely for relaxation, and it's really opened up my imagination, and I'm like very surprised at the things that I've been able to paint without sketching. Another little fun feature that you get from using this brush, it has like lines that are stroke based. So these little lines you see here in these daisies, if I were to use my reference feature, which is right here, you just toggle it on and then you can choose an image from your library, which I made like a little cheat sheet of reference images of daisies. And that's what I look at while I'm drawing this, by the way. I'm not drawing from imagination, you guys. This is very much planned. And so you can see in these daisies, like these little lines of like, I don't know what you call them, but they're light and darkness. And that's kind of emulated here in these brushes. All right, so I have all of my daisies painted, and now it's time to paint the stems. So I'm going to switch from the angled set, which is what I was just using, to the round set of Playful Painters. And these are the same brushes, like literally the same names, the same textures, same everything, except instead of an angled format, they are round. So I'm going to use the same canvas brush to paint the stems of this, and I'm just choosing like a mid green, not that dark, not that light, and I'm gonna just really loosely paint these stems in. And if you look at my sketch towards the bottom, you might be able to see those little lines that I drew. And that's kind of where I need all the stems to converge to, because eventually I want to draw a little bow that's like tying them all together, but they all need to meet in a certain spot for that to happen. So that's why I still have my sketch on at this point. Otherwise, I would have already turned it off. Another favorite brush of mine is the Goopy Paint from the round set, actually both of them. And you can see how much fun, texture, and blendiness is in this brush. And I love using it for pretty much everything. Like I could just use Goopy Paint alone for an entire piece. It just has so many fun painty qualities in it. You can see the very tips of the stems of these brushes, how you're getting those little crackly textures as if you were painting on a canvas with a very dry, like brush, but it has thick paint on that, if that makes sense. You have to be like a painter to kind of understand what I'm talking about. I'm switching back over to my reference sheet because I wanted to zoom in and show you the leaves of these daisies. So they're kind of like weird, squiggly shaped and kind of stickly. And I'm going to emulate that in my painting, especially like this guy who's like flipped over backwards, and I want to do one like that. So if I go back to my painting and I'm going to grab kind of a mid-tone green, I typically start with a mid-tone when I'm starting out, and I have a new brush, and it is the translucent wet detail brush. And this is in the Lisa Gland's Messy Paint box set. And I like this brush for adding more detail in something when I'm less big, messy painting. You know, like the background was really bold and messy, and I just kind of squiggled about. And this one, I'm actually trying to paint a shape, but I still want to be loose and messy like you would be if you were painting in real life. And so here I'm going to do that little guy that flipped over upside down. And I'm trying to remember the shape that I looked at on my reference photo and not get too in my head, because I feel like that's a thing that illustrators do. At least I know that I do. We kind of want everything to be a defined shape. And I've noticed when I've studied painting more, whether it's traditional painting or digital painting, I have a hard time letting go and loosening up and letting my marks be imperfect and like painterly, I guess. And this brush kind of saddles that medium very well. Like it's loose, it's still painty, but it's also still kind of messy and goopy. So previously I was using that brush and I was painting slowly. It's also really good to paint quick with it and do flicking motions. So when I did the underpainting for the leaves, I was like rounding out the tops of the leaves and painting very slowly. But now I want them to be like stickly, like almost like the needles of a Christmas tree. So I'm kind of coming back in and painting very gesturally, using the same brush, just in a very different way. Because I want those tapered edges, and I'm doing like a flicking motion with my wrist. This is looking awesome, but there's a few last things I want to add because in the Lisa Gland set, she included a set of stamps. And I love adding them at the end to give a little bit of pizzazz to my pieces. And her stamp brushes, they came out before the barrel roll was featured with Apple Pencil, but no worries, you can just turn it on yourself so you can have the rotation option. Like now this brush here you're seeing me use, it's rotating with the movement of my Apple Pencil. And I can get a lot of different marks out of that one same brush just by rotating it around. And I'm just kind of adding this in the background. I used my finger to sample a mid-tone color, and I'm kind of like seeing where I can position these, like, I don't know, flicky? I don't know what you'd call these stamps. They're like dried paint, but they're all splattery and weird, and I love using them. Okay, the last brush that I want to mention is the Grubby Inker. And this is not a painting brush. I know this is a painting video, but the Grubby Inker does come in Lisa Glanz's Messy Paint Box, and it's worth mentioning because it has quickly become my go-to inker. It just has such interesting edge texture, and I feel like I'm not doing it justice in this painting because you can't see the beautiful edge texture that it is. But if you were to check out my character drawing where I draw Ray from Princess and the Frog, I did the line work for that with the Grubby Inker, and in that video you can really see how beautiful the edges of this brush are. Like, it has literally become my go-to inker, and I just think it has so much character and it's very fun. So I'm just using that here to draw in this bow. Of course, I totally could have done it with a painty brush, but I really wanted to mention the inker just in case you had this set. All right, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out and making art with me. I hope you had a fun time seeing what brushes I use and how I use them. If you like this video, you will probably like one of these other two painting videos. All right, I will see you in the next one. Bye!